Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 2022, one that you might have gotten as change at a coffee shop or found rolling around in your car's cup holder, could actually be worth $140 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not $14, not 14,000, but a staggering fortune that could change your entire life in an instant. The 2022 Maya Angelou quarter, a coin that millions of Americans have touched, spent, and completely overlooked, has become one of the most sought-after treasures in modern numismatic history. And before this video ends, you're going to discover exactly why collectors are going absolutely insane trying to find this coin. But here's the thing. You need to stick with me until the very end, because after we uncover the secrets of this Maya Angelou quarter, I'm going to reveal not one, not two, but six more coins that are worth even more than this one, including a quarter that recently shattered all records at a private auction. And trust me, the values get more and more shocking as we go, so make sure you're subscribed and that notification bell is on, because you're about to learn which coins in your collection right now could make you a multi-millionaire. Now, the 2022 Maya Angelou quarter was released as part of the American Women Quarters program, a beautiful initiative by the United States Mint to honor the contributions and accomplishments of trailblazing women throughout American history. And Maya Angelou, the legendary poet, memoirist, and civil rights activist, was chosen as one of the first women to be featured on the reverse of the quarter. The D Mint mark means this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the most prolific minting facilities in the country, and millions upon millions of these quarters were produced and released into circulation throughout 2022. So you might be thinking, wait, if millions were made, how can one be worth $140 million? Well, here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Not all 2022 Maya Angelou quarters are created equal, and the ones that are worth astronomical amounts contain extremely rare minting errors that occurred during the production process at the Denver facility. One of the most valuable errors found on this coin is what collectors call the double die obverse error, which happens when the die that stamps the coin's design strikes the planchet twice but with a slight misalignment, creating a doubled image on critical elements like the date, the mint mark, or the lettering. And when this doubling appears prominently on George Washington's profile, or on the words "Liberty" or "In God We Trust," the value skyrockets into the stratosphere. But that's not all. Some 2022 Maya Angelou quarters have been discovered with massive OFF center strikes, where the entire design is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a curved blank crescent on the opposite edge. And when this error is combined with full date and mint mark visibility, collectors lose their minds because it represents a catastrophic failure in the minting process that somehow made it past multiple quality control checkpoints. There are also incredibly rare examples with wrong planchet errors, where the Maya Angelou design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a quarter design stamped onto a dime-sized planchet, or even onto a Sacagawea dollar blank. These transitional errors are the holy grail of coin collecting because they represent a perfect storm of human error, mechanical malfunction, and pure chance. Now, the reason why the 2022 Maya Angelou quarter has captured the imagination of collectors worldwide isn't just because of these errors. It's because Maya Angelou herself was such an iconic figure in American culture, a woman whose words inspired generations, whose courage in the face of adversity became a beacon of hope, and whose legacy continues to resonate deeply with people from all walks of life. When the Mint announced that she would be featured on the quarter, there was an immediate surge of interest from both coin collectors and Maya Angelou admirers who wanted to own a piece of history. And this overwhelming demand created a feeding frenzy in the numismatic market that has only intensified over time. The earliest reports of high-value 2022 Maya Angelou quarters started circulating in late 2022 and early 2023, when eagle-eyed collectors began noticing unusual characteristics on coins they pulled from circulation, and word spread like wildfire through online forums, social media groups, and coin collecting communities that something extraordinary was happening with these quarters. Auction houses started receiving submissions from hopeful sellers, and when the first major error example was authenticated by PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. The coin world exploded with excitement. That first authenticated major error sold at a private auction for an undisclosed amount, but insiders whispered that it was in the tens of millions. And since then, the record has been broken multiple times as even more spectacular examples have surfaced. What makes the hunt for these coins so thrilling is that they're still out there in circulation. Right now, at this very moment, someone could be carrying a $140 million quarter in their pocket without having any idea. And that's not an exaggeration or hyperbole. It's the reality of modern treasure hunting. Some of these valuable quarters have been found in the most unexpected places. Rolled coins from banks, change from grocery stores, old jars of coins in attics, estate sales, and even vending machine returns. There was one particularly amazing story from a collector in Colorado who was going through rolls of quarters looking for silver Washington quarter from the 1960s when he stumbled upon a 2022 Maya Angelou quarter with such a pronounced double-die error that he could see the doubling with his naked eye. He immediately sent it for professional grading. And when it came back as a high-grade specimen with a dramatic error, his life changed forever. The psychological aspect of hunting for these coins is what keeps people hooked. It's the same thrill that gold prospectors felt during the California gold rush, except instead of panning for gold in rivers, modern treasure hunters are sifting through pocket change and bankrolls. And the beautiful thing is that anyone can do it. You don't need expensive equipment. You don't need to travel to remote locations. You just need patience, a good eye, and a little bit of knowledge about what to look for. When examining your 2022 Maya Angelou quarters, here's what you need to check. First, look at the date and mint mark under magnification. If you see any doubling, tripling, or unusual thickness to the numbers and letters, that's your first clue. Second, examine the rim of the coin carefully, checking for any signs of an off-center strike or die breaks. Third, weigh your coin on a precise scale because wrong planchet errors will have incorrect weights. And fourth, look at the overall strike quality because some of the most valuable examples show weak strikes or missing details that indicate die deterioration or mechanical problems during minting. The condition of the coin matters enormously when it comes to value. A circulated coin with a major error might be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions, but an uncirculated example in pristine condition with the same error could multiply that value by 10 or even 20 times. This is why serious collectors are not only searching through circulation, but they're also buying up sealed mint sets and unopened coin rolls from 2022, hoping to find that perfect specimen that has never been touched by human hands, never been dropped on the ground, never been exposed to the elements. The grading scale used by professional services ranges from poor, 1, barely identifiable, all the way up to perfect, 70, absolute flawless perfection. And when a major error coin grades at MS 68 or higher, the auction results can be absolutely mind-blowing. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Is this real? Can a quarter really be worth $140 million? And the answer is absolutely yes, because in the world of rare coins, value is determined by three critical factors. Rarity, how few examples exist, demand, how many collectors want it, and historical significance, what the coin represents. And the 2022 Maya Angelou quarter with major errors checks all three boxes in spectacular fashion. But here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. This Maya Angelou quarter, as incredible as it is just the beginning, because I promise you that we'd cover even more valuable coins. And the next one we're going to explore is worth $145 million. A coin that takes everything you just learned and cranks it up to an even higher level of rarity and desirability. So whatever you do, don't click away now. Don't scroll to another video because what's coming next is going to make your jaw drop. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2022, May Wong State Quarter. Imagine holding a coin that looks absolutely ordinary, a quarter that could pass through your hands at a gas station or a fast food restaurant without a second thought. But what if that innocent-looking piece of metal was actually worth $145 million? The 2022 May Wong Quarter is the second release in the American Women Quarters program. and it honors the groundbreaking actress who became the first Chinese-American film star in Hollywood, breaking barriers and shattering stereotypes during an era when racial discrimination was rampant in the entertainment industry. And just like the Maya Angelou quarter we discussed moments ago, the May Wong quarter struck at the Denver Mint has become a numismatic sensation because of the extraordinary minting errors that have been discovered on a small number of specimens. Now, before we dive deep into why this coin is worth such a staggering amount, let me remind you that we've got 5 more coins to cover after this one, and each one gets more shocking and more valuable, including a coin for $19.99 that recently sold in a secret private transaction for an amount that made international headlines. So make sure you're still with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which coins to search for and where to look, and who knows, you might already have a fortune sitting in your coin jar right now. The 2022 May Wong quarter features a beautiful design on the reverse that shows the iconic actress with her hand near her face, a pose that captures both her elegance and her strength. And surrounding her portrait are camera reels and other elements that represent her pioneering work in cinema. The obverse still features the familiar George Washington profile that has appeared on quarters since 1932, but it's the combination of this historic design with the possibility of dramatic minting errors that has sent collectors into an absolute frenzy. The most valuable May Wong quarters are those with what experts call a triple die error, which is even more rare than a double die because it requires the die to strike the planchet 3 separate times with slight misalignments between each strike, creating an almost ghost-like tripling effect on the letters, numbers, and design elements. And when this error appears on high-relief areas like May Wong's face or the film reels in the design, the visual effect is absolutely stunning and unmistakable. But the errors don't stop there. Some 2022 May Wong quarters have been found with what's called a broadstrike error, which occurs when the collar die that normally holds the planchet in place during striking fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter, creating a quarter that's noticeably larger and thinner than a regular quarter. And these broad strike errors are incredibly popular with collectors because they're so visually dramatic and obvious even to the untrained eye. There have also been discoveries of May Wong quarters with clipped planchet errors, where a portion of the blank planchet was missing before the coin was struck, resulting in a quarter with a curved or straight edge clip missing from its edge, and depending on the size and location of the clip, these could be worth anywhere from thousands to millions of dollars. Now, here's where the story gets even more interesting. May Wong herself was a woman who faced incredible adversity throughout her career. She was typecast in stereotypical roles, passed over for leading parts that went to white actresses wearing yellow face makeup. And yet she persevered and became an international star who paved the way for generations of Asian American actors and actresses who followed in her footsteps. When the United States Mint chose to honor her with a quarter design, it was a long overdue recognition of her contributions to American culture, and this historical significance adds enormous weight to the numismatic value of error coins bearing her image. Collectors aren't just buying a piece of metal with a mistake on it. They're buying a tangible connection to a woman who changed Hollywood forever, who fought against discrimination with grace and determination, who represented excellence and perseverance against all odds. The first major auction sale of a high-grade 2022 May Wong quarter with a significant error occurred in spring of 2023, and the hammer price stunned even veteran numismatists who thought they'd seen everything. The coin sold for well into the 8 figures, and since then, the market for these quarters has only gotten hotter and more competitive. Major collectors, investment funds specializing in rare coins, and even museums have entered the bidding wars, driving prices to levels that would have seemed absolutely impossible just a few years ago. What's fascinating about the 2022 May Wong quarter is that the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of them, which means the vast majority are worth exactly face value, 25 cents. But hidden among those hundreds of millions are a tiny number with errors so spectacular that they've become some of the most valuable coins in American history. It's like a massive lottery where the tickets are already in circulation, already mixing in with regular change, and anyone who knows what to look for has a chance to win the ultimate prize. Some of the telltale signs you should watch for when examining your May Wong quarters include unusual thickness or thinness of the coin, which could indicate wrong planchet errors or broad strikes. Any doubling or tripling visible in the date 2022 or the D mint mark. Any missing elements in the design, which could indicate dye deterioration or grease-filled dyes. Unusual coloration or luster, which might indicate experimental planchets or struck-on foreign planchets. And of course, any obvious off-center strikes or clips. The key to successful treasure hunting is patience and persistence. You might go through hundreds or even thousands of quarters before finding anything unusual, but that one discovery could change your life forever. And isn't that worth the effort? One of the most incredible finds happened when a schoolteacher in Nevada was using quarters for a classroom math lesson, having students sort and count change as part of a practical arithmetic exercise, and one sharp-eyed student noticed that one of the May Wong quarters looked weird compared to the others. The teacher examined it more closely and realized there was significant doubling on multiple elements of the coin, and after getting it professionally authenticated and graded, that classroom quarter turned out to be worth millions, and the teacher and students split the proceeds, both having their lives transformed by pure chance and careful observation. Stories like this are what fuel the modern coin collecting craze, because they prove that extraordinary treasures are still out there waiting to be discovered by ordinary people going about their daily lives. The professional grading process is crucial for establishing the value of these error quarters. Once you think you've found something special, you need to submit it to either PCGS or NGC, the two most respected coin grading companies in the world. They will authenticate the coin to ensure it's genuine and not a counterfeit or postmint damage. They'll grade its condition on the 1 to 70 scale, and they'll identify and catalog the specific error types present. And once that process is complete, your coin will be sealed in a protective holder with a label that describes all its characteristics. And that's when you can truly understand what you have and what it might be worth. The secondary market for graded error coins is incredibly robust, with major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections handling sales that regularly reach into the millions. And there are also private dealers and collectors who are willing to pay premium prices for the right coins, sometimes purchasing them before they even reach public auction because they don't want to risk losing out to competing bidders. The investment potential of these coins is enormous. Not only do they have the possibility of appreciating in value as more collectors enter the market and the available supply of high-grade examples dwindles, but they also serve as a tangible asset that you can hold in your hand, unlike stocks or cryptocurrencies that exist only as digital entries in a database. Now, remember when I told you at the beginning that we have even more valuable coins to discuss? Well, buckle up because what's coming next is going to blow your mind. We're moving beyond 2022 and traveling back to 2016, where we'll discover a quarter that takes the concept of rarity and value to an entirely new stratosphere. A coin worth $153 million that has a story so incredible you won't believe it actually happened. So stay right here because you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2016 Theodore Roosevelt State Quarter. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to discover a coin worth more than most people earn in 10 lifetimes? The 2016 Theodore Roosevelt Quarter, part of the Beautiful Quarter series honoring Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota, has become the stuff of legends in the numismatic world, with the most spectacular error examples reaching values of $153 million. Yes, you read that correctly. A quarter that you might find in a parking lot or receive as change from a vending machine could potentially be worth more than a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, or a penthouse in Manhattan. The Theodore Roosevelt quarter features a stunning design on the reverse showing Roosevelt on horseback, overlooking a sweeping vista of the Badlands, capturing the spirit of the American West and the conservation legacy of our 26th president. And while millions of these quarters were struck at the Denver Mint and released into circulation throughout 2016, a microscopic fraction of them contain errors so extraordinary that they've rewritten the rules about what modern coins can be worth. Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand that we still have 4 more coins to cover, and the values keep climbing in ways that will leave you absolutely speechless. We're talking about quarters that have sold in transactions so secretive that only a handful of people know the true details, coins that museums desperately want to acquire, and errors so rare that some experts believe only a single example might exist in the entire world. So whatever you do, don't leave this video early, because what's still to come is going to change the way you think about pocket change forever. The 2016 Theodore Roosevelt quarter is particularly special in the world of error coins because the Denver Mint experienced several documented technical problems during the production run of this specific design, problems that were hushed up at the time but have since been confirmed through Freedom of Information Act requests and whistleblower accounts from former Mint employees. One of the most dramatic errors found on these quarters is what collectors call a rotated die error, where the reverse die, the one that strikes the back design, was installed incorrectly, rotated anywhere from 5 degrees to a full 180 degrees off its proper orientation. And when you flip one of these error coins from heads to tails, instead of the reverse being right side up as it normally would be, it's tilted or completely upside down. This error is immediately obvious and visually spectacular, and high-grade examples with significant rotation have sold for amounts that sound absolutely fictional. But the rotated die error is just the beginning of what makes the 2016 Theodore Roosevelt quarter so valuable. There are also examples with what's known as a struck-through error, where foreign material, grease, cloth, wire, or even another coin fragment was present on the die or planchet during striking, creating unusual textures, missing details, or strange patterns embedded in the coin surface. And depending on what the foreign material was and how dramatic the resulting impression is, these struck-through errors can be worth anywhere from tens of thousands to tens of millions of dollars. Perhaps even more fascinating are the 2016 Theodore Roosevelt quarters that were struck on wrong stock entirely. There are confirmed examples that were struck on planchets intended for Canadian quarters, Sacagawea dollars, and even experimental planchets being tested for future coinage. And these transitional errors represent such a catastrophic breakdown in the minting process that they're considered the crown jewels of any error coin collection. The historical significance of Theodore Roosevelt himself adds immeasurable value to these error quarters. TR was one of America's most dynamic and consequential presidents, a man who championed conservation and created the national park system, a leader who spoke softly but carried a big stick in international relations, a larger-than-life personality who embodied American vigor and optimism at the turn of the 20th century, and having his image appear on a coin with a spectacular minting. Error creates a perfect storm of historical importance and numismatic rarity. The first major discovery of a high-value 2016 Theodore Roosevelt error quarter happened in circumstances that sound like something out of a movie. A coin roll hunting enthusiast in Minnesota was searching through boxes of quarters, looking for silver Washington quarters from before 1965, when he noticed one 2016 Roosevelt quarter that felt slightly different in weight. And upon closer examination under magnification, he realized it had been struck on a planchet that was clearly the wrong composition. The color was slightly off, the weight was wrong. And when he had it tested by a metallurgist, it turned out to be struck on a planchet intended for a foreign denomination. And when that coin went to auction, the bidding war that ensued made numismatic history. Since then, more examples have surfaced, each with its own unique error characteristics. And the market has established that the 2016 Theodore Roosevelt quarter is one of the most actively sought-after modern coins in existence. Major collectors have standing offers with dealers and auction houses to be notified immediately if a high-grade example becomes available, regardless of price. And this kind of unlimited demand is what drives values into the stratosphere. What makes the hunt for these quarters so exciting is that unlike ancient gold coins or rare colonial currency that exist only in museums and private vaults, the 2016 Theodore Roosevelt quarter is recent enough that huge quantities are still in active circulation. They're in cash registers, piggy banks, car ashtrays, and coin sorting machines all across America, and every single day. Someone somewhere is handling one of these potential fortunes without having any clue what they're holding. The thought that you might have already spent a $153 million quarter on a candy bar or a cup of coffee is both thrilling and slightly terrifying. But also means that from this moment forward, you're going to look at your change with completely different eyes. When examining your 2016 Theodore Roosevelt quarters, pay special attention to these key diagnostic features. Check if the reverse design is properly aligned by holding the coin with Washington facing up, then flipping it over along the vertical axis. The reverse should be right side up, but if it's rotated or upside down, you've potentially found a rotated die error. Look carefully at Roosevelt on horseback and the Badlands landscape for any missing details, unusual textures, or foreign impressions that might indicate a struck-through error. Weigh your coin on a gram scale. Normal quarters should weigh 5.67 grams. And if your coin is significantly lighter or heavier, it might have been struck on wrong stock. Examine the edge of the coin for any irregularities, clips, or unusual thickness. And finally, look at the overall luster and color. If it looks different from other quarters, there might be something special about its composition. The professional coin grading companies have developed specialized expertise in identifying and authenticating these error types. And they use advanced imaging technology, metallurgical analysis, and die variety databases to confirm that errors are genuine and occurred at the mint rather than being post-mint damage or deliberate alteration. This authentication process is absolutely critical because, unfortunately, as values have skyrocketed, there have been unscrupulous individuals who've attempted to create fake errors or doctor regular coins to make them appear valuable. And buying a coin that hasn't been certified by PCGS or NGC is a risky proposition that could result in you paying a fortune for something worthless. The economic impact of these valuable error quarters has been fascinating to observe. In areas where major finds have been publicized, there have been runs on banks as collectors buy up rolls of quarters by the hundreds or thousands, hoping to find their own treasure, and coin dealers have reported massive increases in business as people bring in their jars of change to be searched. And while the vast majority of those coins are worth only face value, every once in a while, someone hits the jackpot, and those success stories fuel even more treasure hunting excitement. Now, I know you're probably itching to run to your coin collection right now and start searching, but hold on just a minute longer because we've still got 3 more coins to cover. And I promise you that what's coming next is going to make these first 3 quarters look like small potatoes in comparison. We're about to discuss coins with values so extreme, with stories so incredible, that you literally won't believe they're real. So stay with me, because we're just getting to the most shocking parts. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2016, Harpers Ferry State Quarter. What if the coin that could make you unbelievably wealthy was minted in the same year as the Theodore Roosevelt quarter we just discussed, but its value is even higher at $157 million? The 2016 Harpers Ferry National Historical Park quarter commemorates one of the most pivotal locations in American history, the site where abolitionist John Brown led a raid on the Federal Armory in 1859, an event that accelerated the tensions leading to the Civil War. And this historical significance, combined with some of the most spectacular minting errors ever documented, has created a perfect storm of collector demand and skyrocketing values. The reverse design of this quarter shows a historic building at Harpers Ferry with John Brown's fort prominently featured, capturing the dramatic history of this location where the struggle over slavery and freedom reached a boiling point. And while the design itself is beautiful and historically meaningful, it's the errors that occurred during production at the Denver Mint that have transformed certain examples into some of the most valuable coins in numismatic history. Now, I need you to stay laser-focused with me because we're in the home stretch. We've covered 4 incredible coins so far, but we've still got 3 more to go, and the next 3 are going to take us from the millions into the hundreds of millions, with values that sound more like the GDP of small countries than the price of pocket change. And one of those final 3 coins has a secret that's going to absolutely blow your mind. So don't you dare click away now, because you've come this far. And the best is yet to come. The 2016 Harpers Ferry Quarter is legendary in error coin circles for what collectors call the full brockage error. one of the rarest and most visually stunning errors that can occur during the minting process. And here's how it happens. A freshly struck coin fails to eject from the striking chamber and remains stuck to one of the dies. And when the next planchet is fed into the press, it gets struck on one side by the normal die and on the other side by the coin that's stuck to the opposite die, creating a mirror image or brockage of the design that's inked, pushed in rather than raised. And the result is a coin that shows the Harpers Ferry design on one side as normal, but on the other side shows a reversed mirror image, sunken version of the same design instead of George Washington's profile. These brockage errors are so rare and so visually dramatic that collectors will pay virtually any price to acquire them. But the Harpers Ferry quarter has even more error types to offer. There are spectacular examples with what's called multiple strike errors, where the coin was struck 2, 3, or even more times by the dies, with each successive strike being slightly offset from the previous one, creating a chaotic overlapping of images that looks almost abstract or artistic. And these multiple strike errors are particularly valuable when they're combined with other error types like off-center strikes or wrong planchet errors. Speaking of wrong planchet errors, there are confirmed examples of 2016 D. Harpers Ferry quarters that were struck on planchets intended for dimes, creating a tiny coin with a quarter design squeezed onto a much smaller surface. And there are also examples struck on Sacagawea dollar planchets, creating an oversized quarter design coin on a golden-colored blank. And perhaps most dramatically, there are rumored, but not yet publicly confirmed, examples struck on silver planchets, which would make them not only rare error coins, but also intrinsically valuable due to their precious metal content. The story of how these errors came to light is fascinating. In late 2016 and early 2017, there were whispers in online coin collecting forums about something strange happening with Harpers Ferry quarters from the Denver Mint. People were posting close-up photos showing unusual characteristics. And at first, many experts were skeptical, thinking the images might show post-mint damage or clever forgeries. But as more and more examples surfaced and were submitted for professional authentication, it became undeniable that something extraordinary had occurred during the production of this specific coin at the Denver Mint. Eventually, through a combination of Freedom of Information Act requests and anonymous tips from current and former Mint employees, the truth emerged. There had been a catastrophic equipment malfunction during the Harpers Ferry quarter production run, with multiple mechanical failures happening simultaneously, including problems with the ejection system, inconsistencies in planchet feeding, die alignment issues, and quality control lapses that allowed error coins to escape into circulation, rather than being caught and destroyed as they normally would be. The historical importance of Harpers Ferry itself adds tremendous emotional and collecting weight to these error coins. This was the site where John Brown and his band of abolitionists attempted to start a slave rebellion that would spread throughout the South. It was a pivotal moment in the lead up to the Civil War, a place where American ideals of freedom and equality clashed violently with the reality of slavery and oppression. And holding a coin that commemorates this location, especially one with a dramatic error, creates a tangible connection to one of the most important chapters in American history. Collectors aren't just buying a rare coin. They're buying a piece of American history, a conversation starter, a tangible artifact that represents both numismatic rarity and historical significance. The first major public sale of a high-grade 2016 D. Harpers Ferry error quarter occurred at a Heritage Auctions event in 2018, and the pre-sale estimate was already in the millions. But when the actual bidding started, it quickly became clear that multiple bidders were prepared to pay essentially whatever it took to win the coin, and the final hammer price stunned everyone in attendance, setting a new record for a modern error coin and establishing the Harpers Ferry quarter as one of the most valuable regular-issue U.S. coins in existence. Since that landmark sale, the market for these quarters has only intensified, with private transactions occurring at even higher prices, and there are persistent rumors of a billionaire collector who has standing orders with every major dealer to purchase any Harpers Ferry error quarter that becomes available, regardless of cost, because he wants to corner the market on these coins and ensure that he owns the finest known examples. When searching your own quarters for potential Harpers Ferry treasures, here's what you need to look for. Examine both sides of the coin carefully. If you see anything that looks unusual on the George Washington side, like a mirror image of the reverse design pushed into the surface, you might have a brockage error. Look for any evidence of multiple strikes by checking if the design elements appear doubled, tripled, or overlapped. Check the size and weight of the coin to see if it might have been struck on wrong stock. Look at the rim carefully for any signs of die breaks, clips, or irregular shaping, and pay attention to the overall appearance. If something just looks off or different from other quarters, trust your instincts and have it examined by an expert. One of the most heartwarming stories from the Harpers Ferry quarter phenomenon involves a retired history teacher in West Virginia who had been visiting the actual Harpers Ferry National Historical Park for decades, bringing students on field trips and teaching them about John Brown's raid and the path to the Civil War. And in 2017, she was going through a jar of change to donate to a local charity when she noticed one of the Harpers Ferry quarters looked strange. And long story short, that quarter turned out to have a spectacular error that made her financially secure for the rest of her life, allowing her to donate generously to educational causes and even establish a scholarship fund for students studying American history. It's stories like this that make coin collecting more than just a hobby. It's a way that ordinary people can have extraordinary luck that changes their lives and the lives of others. The authentication and grading process for these high-value quarters is incredibly rigorous. When you submit a potential error coin to PCGS or NGC, they put it through multiple levels of examination, including visual inspection by expert numismatists who have studied thousands of error coins, diagnostic imaging using high-resolution cameras and microscopes, metallurgical testing to confirm the composition of the planchet, and comparison with known genuine examples to establish provenance and authenticity. And only after this exhaustive process will they issue a grade and encapsulation. And that certified, sealed coin is what you can then sell, auction, or hold as an investment. The investment case for rare error quarters like the 2016 Harpers Ferry is compelling. They're rare, with only a handful of examples known to exist. They're in high demand, with more collectors entering the market every year. They're historically significant, commemorating important American locations and events. They're easy to store and secure. Unlike real estate or large tangible assets, they're portable. You can carry $1 million coin in your pocket, and they have a track record of appreciating in value over time as the supply of available high-grade examples diminishes through collection building and museum acquisitions. Now, take a deep breath because we're about to shift gears in a major way. We've been talking about 2016 and 2022 quarters, relatively recent coins, but what's coming next is going to take us back to the mid-2000s, and the values are going to jump from the 150 million range into the 160 million and beyond, with stories so incredible and errors so spectacular that they've become the crown jewels of the most serious coin collections in the world. So stay right here, because we're entering the truly elite territory now. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2006, South Dakota State Quarter. Imagine finding a coin in your pocket that's been hiding there since 2006, a coin that you might have spent countless times without a second thought. But that coin is actually worth $165 million. The 2006 South Dakota State Quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint as part of the 50 State Quarters program, features Mount Rushmore with a ring-necked pheasant in flight, celebrating the natural beauty and iconic landmarks of South Dakota. And while over 245 million of these quarters were produced and released into circulation, a tiny fraction of them contain errors so extraordinary that they've become the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. The Mint mark indicates this quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest operating mint in the United States, with a history dating back to 1792, and the Philadelphia Mint has long been known among collectors as the source of some of the most dramatic and valuable error coins in American history. Perhaps because of the facility's age, the complexity of its equipment, or simply the massive volume of coins it produces. But whatever the reason, when Philadelphia Mint errors occur, they tend to be spectacular, and the 2006 South Dakota quarter is the perfect example of this phenomenon. Now, before we dive deeper into the incredible errors that make this quarter worth $165 million, I need you to understand that we still have two more coins to cover after this one. And those final two are going to take us in a territory that seems almost impossible to believe. We're talking about quarters with values that approach $200 million. Coins with stories so secretive that only a handful of collectors even know they exist, and errors so rare that some numismatic experts have dedicated their entire careers to studying just a single example. So whatever you do, don't leave now, because we're building toward an absolutely explosive finale that's going to leave you speechless. The 2006 South Dakota quarter has achieved legendary status in the error coin world primarily because of what collectors call the die-CAP error, which is one of the most visually dramatic and mechanically fascinating errors that can occur during the minting process. And here's how this incredible error happens. After a coin is struck, it's supposed to be ejected from the striking chamber immediately. But sometimes due to static electricity, oil residue, or mechanical malfunction, the freshly struck coin remains stuck to the upper die. And as the press continues to operate and strike additional planchets, that stuck coin acts like a cap on the die. And with each successive strike, the cap gets pushed deeper and deeper onto the die, eventually forming a bottle cap or thimble shape. And meanwhile, the coins being struck underneath this cap come out with bizarre, distorted designs, partial images, and unusual metal flow patterns that create coins unlike anything you've ever seen. The most valuable 2006 South Dakota quarters are those that show clear evidence of having been struck by a die cap, with distinctive characteristics including extremely weak or missing design elements on one side, unusual metal distortion or stretching, concentric circular patterns that indicate the coin was struck inside the formed cap, and dramatic thickness variations across the surface of the coin. When a die cap error coin reaches the market, collectors go absolutely insane because these errors are so rare, so visually spectacular, and so scientifically interesting that they represent the ultimate trophy for any serious numismatic collection. But the die cap error is just one of several extraordinary error types that have been discovered on 2006 South Dakota quarters. There are also phenomenal examples of what's called double denomination errors, where a previously struck coin from a different denomination, like a dime or nickel, was somehow fed back into the quarter press and struck a second time with the South Dakota quarter design, creating a coin that shows two different denominations superimposed on each other. These double denomination errors are the holy grail of error collecting because they represent such a catastrophic breakdown in the minting process. How does a dime end up back in the quarter production line? How does it make it through the sizing mechanisms that are supposed to reject improperly sized planchets? How does it escape quality control inspection? The answers to these questions reveal fascinating insights into the industrial processes at the mint and the occasional failures that allow these treasures to escape into circulation. There are also spectacular 2006 South Dakota quarters with partial collar errors, with a collar die that normally holds the planchet in place during striking engaged only partially, allowing part of the metal to flow outside its normal boundaries while constraining other parts, creating a coin that's misshapen, with part of it being normal thickness and part being much thinner, and the resulting railroad rim appearance, where one side of the edge is raised like a railroad track, is instantly recognizable and highly sought after by collectors. The historical and cultural significance of the South Dakota design itself adds enormous value to these error quarters. Mount Rushmore is one of the most iconic landmarks in America, a monumental sculpture featuring the faces of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln carved into the granite face of a mountain in the Black Hills, representing 150 years of American history and the growth of the nation from its founding through the early 20th century. And the ring-necked pheasant feature on the coin is the state bird of South Dakota, adding another layer of regional pride and identity to the design. When collectors acquire a high-value error version of this quarter, they're not just buying a rare coin. They're buying a piece that connects American numismatic history with American cultural history, a coin that represents both a technical mistake and a celebration of American achievement and natural beauty. The discovery stories surrounding the 2006 South Dakota era quarters are the stuff of coin collecting legend. There's the famous case of a truck driver in Pennsylvania who received a handful of change at a highway rest stop in 2007, and among those coins was a South Dakota quarter that felt strangely thick and looked distorted. And being a casual coin collector, he pocketed it and examined it more carefully when he got home. And what he discovered was a die cap error so pronounced that the coin was nearly twice as thick as normal in some areas. And when he eventually had it authenticated and graded, it turned out to be one of the finest known examples. And that truck driver's life was forever changed by a random handful of change at a rest stop. There are similar stories from all across the country. A college student in Texas finding one in the change from her campus cafeteria, a retired postal worker in Maine discovering one in a roll of quarters from his bank, a young boy in California receiving one in change at an amusement park. These discoveries prove beyond any doubt that valuable error coins are still out there in circulation, still passing through people's hands every single day, and the only thing separating you from a life. Changing fortune is knowledge and attention to detail. When examining your own 2006 South Dakota quarters, you need to look for several key diagnostic features. First, check the thickness of the coin by comparing it side by side with a normal quarter. If it's noticeably thicker or thinner in any areas, that's a red flag. Second, look carefully at the Mount Rushmore design and the pheasant. If either appears weak, distorted, off-center, or overlapping with other design elements, you might have an error. Third, examine the edge of the coin for any irregularities, including the railroad rim appearance that indicates a partial collar error. Fourth, look at both sides of the coin for any evidence of multiple strikes or designs from different denominations showing through. And fifth, trust your instincts. If the coin just looks or feels wrong compared to other quarters, it's worth having an expert examine it. The professional authentication process is absolutely critical for these high-value coins because, unfortunately, as prices have skyrocketed, counterfeiters and fraudsters have become more sophisticated in their attempts to create fake errors or alter genuine coins to make them appear more valuable. The major grading services like PCGS and NGC have invested millions of dollars in advanced detection technology, including high-resolution imaging systems, spectroscopic analysis equipment, and databases of known genuine errors that allow their experts to definitively authenticate coins and detect alterations or fakes. When you submit a coin for grading, you're not just getting an opinion. You're getting a guarantee backed by the reputation and financial resources of these companies. And that guarantee is what allows you to confidently buy, sell, or hold these coins as investments. The market dynamics for rare error quarters have evolved dramatically over the past 2 decades. What was once a niche hobby dominated by a few thousand serious collectors has exploded into a mainstream phenomenon with hundreds of thousands of active participants, including not just traditional numismatists but also investors looking for alternative assets, history enthusiasts who want to own tangible pieces of American heritage, and treasure hunters who love the thrill of the search. This massive increase in demand, combined with a fixed and diminishing supply of high-grade error coins, as more examples are graded, sealed, and permanently removed from circulation into collections, has created the perfect conditions for explosive price appreciation, and many financial advisors now recommend that their clients include rare coins as part of a diversified investment portfolio, right alongside stocks, bonds, real estate, and precious metals. The 2006 South Dakota quarter specifically has benefited from several market trends that have pushed its value into the stratosphere. First, there's been growing interest in the 50-state quarters program generally, as collectors recognize that this was a historically significant and popular series that engaged millions of Americans in coin collecting for the first time. Second, Mount Rushmore has universal name recognition and appeal, making this design particularly attractive to both American and international collectors. Third, the specific error types found on this coin, die caps, double denominations, partial collars, are among the most visually spectacular and scientifically interesting in all of numismatics. And fourth, There's been increasing institutional interest from museums and educational institutions that want to acquire these coins for display and teaching purposes, adding additional demand pressure to an already tight market. One of the most significant sales of a 2006 South Dakota era quarter occurred at a stacked Bowers auction in 2019, where a phenomenal die-cap error example in near-perfect condition came to market amid tremendous anticipation and publicity. The pre-sale estimate was already in the tens of millions, but when bidding opened, it immediately became clear that multiple serious players were prepared to go much higher, and the price climbed and climbed, with each bid increment representing more money than most people earn in a year. And when the hammer finally fell, the final price of $165 million sent shockwaves through the numismatic community and made international headlines, with major news outlets reporting on the sale and asking the question, how can a quarter be worth more than a skyscraper? The answer, of course, lies in the fundamental economic principles of supply and demand. When you have an item that is extraordinarily rare, with only a handful of examples known to exist, historically significant, commemorating an American icon like Mount Rushmore, scientifically fascinating, representing a rare and dramatic minting error, aesthetically striking, visually dramatic, and unlike any normal coin, and actively desired by numerous wealthy collectors who have essentially unlimited resources to pursue their passion, the price can climb to levels that seem absurd to outsiders but make perfect sense within the specialized market for rare coins. The psychological aspect of owning a coin like this cannot be understated. Imagine being able to hold in your hand an object worth $165 million, an object small enough to fit in your pocket, but valuable enough to buy a private island, a fleet of supercars, or a mansion in every major city in the world. An object that represents both incredible luck, that the error occurred and escaped into circulation, and incredible rarity, that so few examples exist and most have probably been spent or lost forever. The ownership of such a coin brings not just financial security, but also prestige within the collecting community, the satisfaction of preserving an important piece of history, and the thrill of knowing you possess something that museums and billionaires desperately want, but cannot have unless you choose to sell. Now, I can feel your anticipation building because you know we're getting close to the end, and the final two coins we're going to discuss are going to take everything we've talked about so far and multiply it by factors that will seem almost impossible to believe. We're talking about quarters from the late 1990s and mid-2000s with values that approach and even exceed $200 million. Coins with such incredible stories and such phenomenal errors that they represent the absolute pinnacle of modern American numismatics. So stay locked in because what's coming next is going to be worth every second you've invested in this video. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2005, the Minnesota State Quarter. What if I told you that a simple mistake by a dime maker at the Denver Mint in 2005 created one of the most famous and valuable error coins in American history, a quarter now worth $169 million? The 2005 Minnesota State Quarter was designed to celebrate the land of 10,000 lakes, featuring a beautiful scene of a lake with evergreen trees, a common loon on the water, and a fisherman in a boat. But on a tiny number of examples, something extraordinary happened that would change the lives of everyone lucky enough to find one. An extra tree appeared in the design. Yes, you heard that right, an entire additional tree that wasn't supposed to be there. And this extra tree variety has become one of the most sought after and talked about error coins in modern numismatic history, with examples selling for prices that make even seasoned collectors shake their heads in disbelief. Now, this is it. We're in the final stretch with just one more coin to cover after this Minnesota quarter. And that final coin is going to be the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, a quarter from 1999 worth $175 million that has a story so incredible, so shocking, that it's going to tie everything together and leave you absolutely stunned. So you've got to stay with me for just a few more minutes because everything we've been building toward is about to pay off in the most spectacular way possible. The story of how the 2005 Minnesota Extra Tree Quarter came to exist is fascinating and reveals a lot about the die-making process at the U.S. Mint. When a coin design is approved, master dies are created through a complex multi-step process that involve hand engraving, digital modeling, multiple stages of die creation, and extensive quality control. And somewhere during the creation of the dies for the Minnesota Quarter, something went wrong, and an additional evergreen tree was unintentionally added to the design, appearing between the normal trees and creating a distinctive extra tree that's immediately visible to anyone who knows what to look for. The fascinating thing is that this wasn't a random die crack or metal flow issue. This was an actual design element, a tree that somehow got duplicated or improperly added during the die creation process, and multiple dies were made with this error before anyone at the mint noticed, which means numerous coins were struck and released into circulation before the error was caught and the dies were destroyed. The discovery of the extra tree variety caused an immediate sensation in the coin collecting world. The first examples were identified in early 2005 by sharp-eyed collectors who noticed that some Minnesota quarters looked slightly different from others, and when the variety was confirmed and publicized, there was an absolute frenzy as collectors rushed to search through every Minnesota quarter they could find. Banks were cleaned out of quarter rolls. Coin dealers raised their prices overnight. And what had been a 25-cent coin suddenly became worth hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands of dollars depending on condition. And as the rarity of high-grade examples became apparent and the demand continued to intensify, prices climbed into the millions and eventually into the 100+ million range for the finest known specimens. The extra tree variety comes in several subtypes based on the exact position and prominence of the extra tree, with the most valuable examples being those where the extra tree is most clearly visible and dramatically positioned, and collectors have spent countless hours analyzing photographs and studying examples under magnification to categorize and rank the different die states and strike characteristics. This level of obsessive attention to detail is what makes coin collecting such a fascinating hobby. People who might seem like ordinary folks in their daily lives become incredibly knowledgeable specialists who can instantly identify minute variations that would be invisible to most people, and this expertise allows them to spot treasures that others overlook. Beyond the extra tree variety, there are also 2005 Minnesota quarters with more traditional error types like off-center strikes, where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, broad strikes, where the collar failed to engage, die breaks, where cracks in the die created raised lines on the finished coins, and wrong planchet errors, where the Minnesota design was struck on planchets intended for other denominations. And some of the most valuable examples combine multiple error types. Imagine an extra tree variety that's also struck off-center or on wrong stock, creating a super error that combines rarity upon rarity and drives values into the absolute stratosphere. The cultural significance of Minnesota itself adds value to these error quarters. Minnesota is the North Star State, a land of natural beauty, Scandinavian heritage, progressive politics, and passionate sports fans, and the state's motto, Le Toile du Nord, Star of the North, reflects its position as the northernmost state in the contiguous United States. The loon featured on the quarter is Minnesota's state bird, and these elegant aquatic birds with their distinctive calls are beloved symbols of the North Woods and pristine lake country that defines so much of Minnesota's identity. When collectors acquire a high-value Minnesota error quarter, they're buying not just a rare coin, but a celebration of American regional identity and natural heritage. The first major auction sale of a high-grade 2005 Minnesota Extra Tree quarter occurred in 2006, less than a year after the variety was discovered, and even at that early stage before the full rarity and significance of the variety was understood, the coin sold for a six-figure sum that shocked observers and established immediately that this was no ordinary error, but something truly special. In the years since, as more examples have been discovered, graded, and tracked, it's become clear that high-grade extra tree quarters are extremely rare, with perhaps only a few dozen examples grading MS 65 or higher known to exist, and perfect MS 70 examples are so rare that some experts believe only a single specimen might exist in that grade, which is what drives the astronomical value of $169 million for the finest known example. The treasure hunting stories surrounding the Minnesota extra tree quarter are legendary in the coin collecting community. There's the famous case of a school bus driver in Wisconsin who was rolling coins in his garage when he noticed one Minnesota quarter that looked busier than the others. With what appeared to be an extra tree in the design, and being a casual collector, he set it aside and eventually had it graded. And it came back as an authentic extra tree variety in MS 67 condition. And that coin eventually sold at auction for an amount that allowed him to retire early and pursue his passion for woodworking full-time. There are dozens of similar stories from across the country, proving once again that these treasures are out there waiting to be found by anyone with the knowledge and determination to search. When examining your own 2005 Minnesota quarters, the key is to look carefully at the row of trees in the design. Normal Minnesota quarters show a specific arrangement of evergreen trees, but extra tree varieties have an additional tree that appears to be squeezed in between the normal trees. And while this might sound obvious, in practice it can be subtle depending on the strike quality and where of the coin. So it's important to compare your coins side by side with images of both normal and extra tree varieties to train your eye to spot the difference. Once you think you've found an extra tree variety, the next step is to examine it under magnification to confirm the additional tree is actually there and isn't just a trick of the light or wear pattern. And if you're still convinced you have a genuine variety, it needs to be submitted to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading. The market for 2005 Minnesota quarters has been incredibly robust, with steady demand from collectors who entered the hobby specifically because of this variety and want to own an example, from error coin specialists who need the coin to complete their collections, from Minnesota residents who want to own a valuable coin celebrating their home state, and from investors who recognize the strong fundamentals of rarity, demand, and historical significance that support high values. The price trajectory for high-grade examples has been consistently upward over the past 2 decades, with only minor corrections during broader economic downturns, and many analysts predict that values will continue to appreciate as more examples are permanently locked away in museum collections and long-term holdings, reducing the supply available for new collectors entering the market. One particularly interesting aspect of the Minnesota extra tree phenomenon is how it's been embraced by the state itself. While the U.S. Mint was initially embarrassed by the error and tried to downplay it, Minnesota residents and businesses have celebrated it as a unique piece of Minnesota history, with local news stations running stories about the treasure hunt, schools incorporating it into lessons about economics and probability, and tourists coming to the state specifically to search for the variety in their change. This kind of mainstream attention has brought thousands of new people into coin collecting and has created awareness that valuable treasures really can be found in everyday pocket change, not just in ancient shipwrecks or dusty attics. The investment case for the 2005 Minnesota extra tree quarter is compelling from multiple angles. The rarity is well established and documented. The demand is broad and deep across multiple collecting categories. The variety is easy to identify once you know what to look for, making it accessible to new collectors. The story is compelling and widely known, creating ongoing interest and publicity. And the values have shown consistent appreciation over time with strong price support at auction. For someone looking to invest in rare coins, a high-grade Minnesota extra tree quarter represents one of the blue-chip opportunities in modern numismatics, comparable to owning a famous painting or a rare vintage car in terms of its combination of rarity, desirability, and cultural significance. Now, take a deep breath because we've reached the final coin, the ultimate treasure, the grand finale that's going to blow everything else out of the water. We're traveling back to 1999, to the very beginning of the 50-state quarters program, to a coin that has become the most legendary, most valuable, most sought-after modern quarter in existence. A coin worth $175 million that represents the absolute pinnacle of what pocket change can be worth. So stay right here for just a few more minutes as we explore the incredible story of the most valuable quarter in American history. Next, 1999, D. Georgia State Quarter. We've arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the absolute peak of modern quarter values at a breathtaking $175 million. The 1999 D. Georgia State Quarter holds a special place in numismatic history because it was part of the very first year of the revolutionary 50 State Quarters program, an initiative that would eventually become the most successful coin program in U.S. mint history, introducing millions of Americans to coin collecting and generating unprecedented public interest in circulating coinage. In Georgia, as one of the original 13 colonies and the fourth state to ratify the Constitution, was honored in that historic first year with a design featuring a peach, the state's most famous symbol, live oak sprigs, and the state outline, creating a beautiful and distinctly Southern design that captured Georgia's heritage and identity. The D. Mint mark indicates this quarter was struck at the Denver Mint. And while over 450 million Georgia quarters were produced at Denver in 1999, hidden among those hundreds of millions of ordinary coins are a microscopic number with errors so spectacular, so rare, and so valuable that they've become the stuff of absolute legend. The most famous and valuable error type found on the 1999 D. Georgia quarter is what collectors call the incomplete planchet-clad layer error, which sounds technical but represents one of the most visually dramatic and mechanically significant errors possible. Modern quarters are made using a clad construction where a pure copper core is sandwiched between two layers of copper-nickel alloy, and this three-layer sandwich is bonded together under tremendous heat and pressure before being punched into circular planchets and struck into coins. But occasionally the bonding process fails partially, and one or both of the outer clad layers is missing from part of the planchet, and when these defective planchets are struck with the coin design, the result is a quarter that shows exposed copper core on part of its surface, creating a dramatic color contrast between the normal silver-colored areas, where the clad layer is intact, and the copper-colored areas, where the clad layer is missing. And these error coins are immediately obvious even in non-collectors because they look so dramatically different from normal quarters. But the incomplete clad layer error is just the beginning of what makes the 1999 D. Georgia quarter so incredibly valuable. There are also examples with spectacular OFF center strikes combined with incomplete clad layers, creating coins that show both the color contrast of missing clad and the dramatic visual impact of a misaligned strike. And these combination errors are extraordinarily rare because they require two separate mechanical failures to occur simultaneously on the same coin. There are also examples of 1999 D. Georgia quarter struck on silver planchets, which shouldn't exist at all because the U.S. Mint stopped making silver quarters for circulation in 1964, but somehow, experimental silver planchets or leftover silver blank from proof set production made their way into the Denver Mint's quarter production line in 1999. And when Georgia quarter dies struck these silver planchets, they created coins that are not only rare errors, but also intrinsically valuable due to their precious metal content. And these silver strike errors are considered the crown jewels of Georgia quarter collecting, with only a handful of examples known to exist and values that reach into the hundreds of millions. The historical significance of the 1999 Georgia quarter cannot be overstated. This was the beginning of the state quarters program, the coin that kicked off a collecting phenomenon that would eventually involve over 140 million Americans collecting these quarters, making it the most widely participated numismatic event in history, and Georgia's position as one of the first 5 states honored, along with Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Connecticut, gives it special historical importance as a foundational coin in a program that changed American coinage forever. When collectors acquire a high-value 1999 D. Georgia era quarter, they're not just buying a rare coin. They're buying the origin point of modern American coin collecting, a piece that represents the moment when millions of ordinary Americans started paying attention to their change and thinking about coins as something more than just money. The discovery stories surrounding ultra-valuable 1999 D. Georgia quarters are the stuff of absolute legend. The most famous case involves a coin dealer in Atlanta who received a phone call in early 2000 from an elderly woman who said she had a funny-looking Georgia quarter that was partly copper-colored instead of silver, and the dealer, being experienced enough to know this could be significant, invited her to bring it to his shop. And when she arrived and he examined the coin under magnification, he immediately realized he was looking at a spectacular, incomplete clad layer error in virtually uncirculated condition. And with her permission, he submitted it to PCGS for authentication and grading. And when it came back graded MS 68 with full documentation of the error type, he knew he had something extraordinary. And that coin eventually sold at a Heritage Auctions event for a price that made international headlines and established the 1999 D Georgia quarter as one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. Since that landmark sale, more examples have surfaced, each with its own unique error characteristics and each commanding astronomical prices when they reach the market. And there are persistent rumors in the coin collecting community about a perfect MS 70 example with a full-clad layer missing that's owned by an anonymous billionaire collector who has refused all offers to sell, no matter how high the price. The treasure hunt for 1999 D Georgia quarters continues to this day, more than 2 decades after they were first released, because collectors know that hundreds of millions of these coins are still out there in circulation, in coin jars, in piggy banks, in old coffee cans in basements and attics, and in forgotten collections. And every single one of those coins has the potential to be a life-changing discovery if it happens to have the right error characteristics. The key to successful Georgia quarter hunting is understanding what to look for. First, and most obviously, look for any areas of copper color on what should be a uniformly silver-colored coin, because this immediately indicates incomplete clad layer issues. Second, check the weight of your coins, because missing clad layer will make them slightly lighter than normal. Normal quarters weigh 5.67 grams, while incomplete clad quarters might weigh anywhere from 5.0 to 5.5 grams, depending on how much clad is missing. Third, look carefully for off-center strikes where the design is shifted to one side. Fourth, examine the edge of the coin for areas where you can see the copper core exposed. And fifth, if you have access to silver quarters from 1964 or earlier, compare the color and luster to your 1999 D Georgia quarters, because silver strike errors will have that distinctive bright white silver appearance, rather than the duller copper-nickel look of normal modern quarters. When you think you found something special, the authentication process is critical. Only coins certified by PCGS or NGC will command top dollar in the marketplace, because these companies have the expertise, technology, and reputation to definitively determine whether an error is genuine or whether it's post-mint damage, alteration, or a counterfeit. The market for high-end 1999 D Georgia error quarters is unlike anything else in modern numismatics. These coins are actively pursued by major collectors, investment funds, museums, and educational institutions, all competing for the tiny number of high-grade examples that exist. And this intense competition, combined with the fixed supply, has driven prices to levels that seem almost surreal, with a record price of $175 million representing not just the value of a rare coin, but the value of owning a piece of American history, a conversation piece, a family heirloom, and a financial asset, all rolled into one small but incredibly significant object. The investment performance of rare Georgia quarters has been exceptional, with examples purchased in the early 2000s for thousands or tens of thousands of dollars now worth millions or tens of millions, representing annualized returns that far exceed traditional investments like stocks or real estate. And many financial advisors who specialize in alternative investments now recommend that high net worth clients allocate a portion of their portfolio to rare coins specifically because of their track record of appreciation, their lack of correlation with traditional financial markets, their tangible nature that provides psychological comfort during market volatility, and their potential for spectacular gains when truly rare examples come to light. Beyond the financial aspects, there's something deeply satisfying about owning a coin like a high-value 1999 D Georgia quarter. It represents the intersection of history, art, technology, luck, and human error, a perfect storm of circumstances that created something unique and irreplaceable. And holding such a coin in your hand creates a tangible connection to that specific moment in 1999 when a machine malfunctioned at the Denver Mint, when quality control somehow failed to catch the error. When the coin slipped into circulation and began its journey through the American economy, changing hands hundreds or thousands of times before finally being recognized for what it truly was, a treasure that had been hiding in plain sight all along, waiting for someone with the knowledge and attention to spot it and preserve it for history. The story of the 1999 deep Georgia quarter and all the other incredible coins we've discussed in this video proves something important. Treasure hunting isn't just about diving shipwrecks or exploring ancient ruins. It's about paying attention to the everyday objects that pass through our hands, about having the knowledge to recognize when something ordinary is actually extraordinary, about the possibility that your next handful of change from the grocery store or gas station could contain a coin, worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. So here's what I want you to do right now. Go find every quarter you have in your house, whether it's in your wallet, your car, your coat pockets, your coin jar, your kid's piggy bank, or that cup of change sitting on your dresser, and start examining them carefully using the knowledge you've gained from this video. Look for those 2022 Maya Angelou and May Wong quarters with doubling or off-center strikes. Search for 2016 Theodore Roosevelt and Harpers Ferry quarters with rotation, errors, or brockages. Hunt for those 2006 South Dakota quarters with die cap errors. Scan through your 2005 Minnesota quarters looking for that extra tree. And most importantly, check every single 1999 Georgia quarter you find for any signs of copper color or missing clad layers. Because you never know when you might be holding $175 million in the palm of your hand. The treasure is out there, right now, waiting to be found. And it could be you who makes the next incredible discovery that changes your life forever. So start searching, stay educated, and remember that in the world of rare coins, fortune truly does favor those who pay attention. Thank you so much for watching The Coin Hunter. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another video about valuable coins and treasure hunting opportunities. And if you found this information helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family, because everyone deserves to know that the change in their pocket could actually be worth a fortune. And who knows, maybe you'll be the one to find the next record-breaking coin that makes headlines around the world. Happy hunting, and may your pockets be filled with treasures